what we've done is we have a piece of plywood, marine grade plywood, coated in epoxy and thoroughly sanded and coated with a base primer of Kilz 2, Kilz Adhesion, which is a product you've probably not heard about, but it's a special primer that supposedly takes to slick surfaces. And then you have the just straight paint. And on this is a piece of PTFE. Now you'll see I've scraped at some of these because I played with this test before, but I can still show my point. A piece of PTFE, which basically no paint can adhere to, so it gave us an idea of how these things are reacting below. Basically these cream colors, this is Behr, and the green is Valspar. And I don't know if I can get this to work, but you see we coated the paint on this, waited 6 days, threw it out in the rain, and these bubbles developed. This is the Valspar paint with Kilz 2 primer. This is the Behr paint with Kilz 2 primer. And the Behr doesn't have any of the water bubbles underneath. The Valspar does. Now here is Valspar and Kilz Adhesion. And you can see again bubbles. Some of that's the texture of the paintbrush, but these little guys, those are little water bubbles. And the Behr, actually on this one, did also have tiny little bubbles. Something between the paint and the primer. That's Kilz Adhesion. Not quite sure why that happened, but that did happen on both of them. And here is just straight paint. The Valspar, which has smaller bubbles, but there are still bubbles underneath the surface. And the Behr, which is flawless. Well, you know, it's got flaws because I scraped at it, but there are no water bubbles under the surface. Not one on there. Now when we go to the same test on the PTFE sheet, you can see that the Valspar, once again, bubbled up with water, and if we peel it back, you can actually see the primer underneath. And that means it adhered to the primer, but still allowed moisture to get through. The Behr, and you see I have to peel at this to get it to come up, adhered to the primer, and this one has no water bubbles underneath. All those flaws are because I stuck it to PTFE, which is hydrophobic essentially, and did not want to stick. Now when you have the Kilz Adhesion with the Valspar, you see once again water bubbles. And if you see over here where I've peeled up the paint, the primer stuck better, and the paint really didn't stick to it all that well. I'm peeling the paint off, but the primer remains on. Now when we go to the Behr, it actually does have some water penetration. It has something to do with the mix of Behr and Kilz Adhesion. So it has something to do with the combination of paint and primer. And once again, this is about 6 days after I coated them. And over here at the bottom we have just paint, Valspar. It had more water bubbles, but basically this thing almost washed right off. I mean, there it is. It came off quite readily. Here's the Behr. Does not want to move. I got to peel at it, which is what you would expect it to come off, but it takes work to peel it up. You know, it doesn't push around. Neither does this one with the primers. But that piece came right off. Had really little to no stick. So yeah, we thought that was a very interesting test. The Valspar could have been the batch, we don't really know, but for some reason allows water to get in after several days of drying and proper surface preparation, and despite the use of primer or not.